Alexa, turn on the video light.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see, Oni-chan, good to see you. Jade, good to see you. Wildfire, Purified, Chicken Noodle, and Luna. Oh, you're stuffing your face with cookies. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. No reason to regret it. So, before I forget and this phone goes off, I'm going to turn it off. Too late. Should have seen that coming. See, Stuart, good to see you as well. Hey, Uber, good to see you. So, all right, let's see if I can adjust this a little. Yeah, that'll work. We're not here to stare at me anyway. So, okay, so again, like last week, we will be having a topic tonight, and we'll introduce that in a second. We do have a few announcements. First off, for those who don't know, we do have the channel membership. You can hit the membership down below, and we do have a Patreon also. It's in 3 tiers. If you want to support the channel, by all means, sign up and select your level of perks. For the tier 3 members, we have started doing the live streams every other Monday for just the tier 3 members. Last week we didn't have a very good turnout, but that's okay. That topic will just be pushed over to the next stream, which, for those wondering, to be exact, that next tier 3 member stream should be Monday the 25th, and it will be announced on the Patreon tier 3 area as well as the community tab here on Facebook. So yay. Also, for tier 3 members, it was brought to my attention that the discount code for the merchandise store did not go up as it was supposed to on October 1st. My apologies. However, the discount code is now made available. You can find it in the community tab. Sorry for the delay. My apologies on that one. Also, we actually did it. We have the neck gaiters with the Dragon's Eye seal on them officially now over at the merch store. For everybody that's been asking about them, we finally got them. And in the process, we even added a pint glass with the Dragon's Eye seal on there. I don't have the pint glass. I just got a coffee cup here, though I'll probably get me a pint glass. So if you'd like a tall glass, we also have that. We are working to also get the Melnjorn rune circle as well as the Volknot rune circle available in the neck gaiters as well. So that's going to be a thing. Let's see, there's something else. Oh, yeah, there was something else. This is the big one. So many of y'all know that the way this channel goes is generally also the way my practice and my focus is going. And you also know I've been working heavily in the Cliff-Oth, and that's coming to a close. I'm so happy for all the lessons I've learned. Don't get me wrong, I don't regret working through it. However, unexpectedly, I do have to admit that Odin and the Norse are really pulling on me very heavily to dive back into a very focused path working with them again. And that may very well start at New Year's or around Yule. I'm looking into that. But that does mean, of course, that we will probably be seeing a lot more Norse-focused content coming to the channel. So some of the series that we've been working on right now might slow down a bit. They won't stop entirely, but they might slow down. For example, the Goetia. In order to make more room for some Norse videos talking about different ideologies of Norse, how one might begin a Norse practice, talking about the different entities, the different 9 realms, little bits and pieces like that. And I do believe a good chunk of what Odin's going to have me working on is going to deal heavily with the Norse Magick course that Odin has been pushing me to do. I don't 100% know just what he's pushing just yet. I just know that pull to dive in and work really heavily with them again is there. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not excited about it, because I absolutely adored the time I spent with them last time. So that is something we may be seeing here on the channel quite a bit. Maybe now we'll finally get a Thor video. Have I not done a Thor video? That seems so weird. Yeah, you'll probably get a Thor video. Little Earth Dragon, good to see you. Bornoldus, glad you can make it. Well, heck, I'm going to have to make sure we do. Yeah, we're going to do a Thor video for sure. That is a little odd that I haven't done one. I could have swore I did one on Thor. Interesting, but that is kind of the thing. When you're a one-man YouTube channel, you've got so much content that you want to create, and oftentimes you can't remember what you filmed and what you haven't filmed. And even with a ideal board that I keep track of everything, I still get lost. That's one thing I love about what I do, is the fact that I don't think I'm ever going to run out of the ability to create content for you all. Just on the sheer fact of it's such a massive, massive well. Is it possible to work with Berserker currents? Well, yeah, the Berserker current isn't anything as special as what people may set it aside as. So it is very possible. It's not even a singular current. It's more of a philosophy and ideology. But yes, it is very possible. And there's a lot of misconceptions about it. A lot of misconceptions. So, but that's the general announcements that we do have. So with that said, let's talk about our topic tonight. Tonight, I thought we'd get a little weird. So we're going to talk about reality and subconscious and magic. Now, with this one, I do want to reiterate, during the live streams, we have to keep things remote, reasonably PG-ish, and we do not discuss illegal substances during the live streams so they don't get flagged. Now, I know when we go into topics that deal with subconscious and reality and subjectiveness, that a lot of people in here want to ask questions about substances that we literally have quite said let's not discuss in public live streams. So, before we get started on this fun little topic, I did want to go ahead and put that out there. And as much as possible, let's attempt to stay on topic. Now, what do I mean by reality, subconscious, and subjective? Well, just like last time, we'll give you a little pitch into it. Now, you get a lot of people who's wanting to know the differences and the specifics and what's this entity like, what's this entity like, what's this entity like, how do I do this, how do I do that, how do I do that? And they're looking for something rock solid, foundational, unyielding, and they're wanting it to be as factual, tangible, and provable as science. Newsflash: metaphysics, science does not support it. Regardless of what the spiritual healers and the Deepak Chopras and all these other gurus will tell you, science does not support it in any shape, form, or fashion. And just because you change the definition of a scientific term doesn't mean it's backed by science. In fact, the second you change the definition of the word, you disassociated yourself from science. But that does not mean that we have not seen results from it, does it? And that, I did a video on this at one point, are entities real or subconscious? So we touched on this a little bit in that video. And I wanted to dive a lot deeper into this topic. It's even come up a time or two in the Discord server. And at the end of the day, I think it surprises a lot of people when I actually come out and say, whether these entities are real or just all in your mind and you're making it up. If your practice is manifesting the results you want at a pace you want, does it freaking matter? And I would say the answer is no. But this is also one of the fun topics that a lot of magicians who actually know their stuff and are comfortable and aren't having to check their ego against everyone else's beliefs, love to go round and roundabout. And I thought this would be a great thing for us to discuss here, because you do have a lot of questions and that really do come into this category quite a bit. Let's see. Anyone else listen to Brothers of Metal? They're a Norse power metal band, and they sing all the legends. I don't think I've heard of their music. Wildfire. I have to look them up. I have a few of the albums from Man of War, but not that particular band. I have to look that one up. Thanks. What'd you lose? Oh, you're talking about me not being able to keep track of journals. Yep. Uber Puta says, can you journey and access the web of the weird without any experience with Norse magic? Nope. No, you cannot. Accessing the web of the weird is hard. And even once you access it, doing anything with it is even harder. See, all right, let's get into this topic here. Oni-chan, I believe the subconscious is connected to all knowledge, hence the imagination. Do you agree with this statement? Let's see, there's a trick in there. It's like, do I agree? Technically speaking, I think within its theoretical side, it's probable. As far as do I have a hard yes or no, that I actually don't. But this is one of the things we have seen interesting studies of. So, for example, I forget the exact location, but there's a grouping of islands with monkeys on it, and they had the same species of monkeys separated. They couldn't interact at all, but this grouping of monkeys learned a skill, and this group of monkeys started showing the same skill. So there seems to be some information transfer in some way that's not understood there. And a lot of people put it on the evolutionary level and that stuff, and I get that. So at least within that paradigm, Oni-chan, it does appear that there is kind of a genetic knowledge sharing base. But just because we see a parallel doesn't mean it's a hard fact, and that's also something we got to remember. Though it is an interesting phenomenon that I absolutely think is amazing. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it's very probable. And I would even say that it's good, possibly fair, that that's where a great deal of information via divinations comes from. Because the tools are pointless at the end of the day. Let's be honest. You don't need the tools for any form of divinations. Ultimate goal from divination is to be able to pluck that information straight out of the ether. And when we say out of the ether, there's a lot of people who believe we are plucking that information out of the physical shared consciousness, in which case that would make a lot of sense. So, there is that. The same thing is like, an entity. Is an entity a real entity with outside the physical plane, or is it just a collective of multi-consciousness that is being shared and believed in, not even at the level of egregore, but that wisdom across the species is being shared, and we're attributing it to an entity. And these are questions that, in all honesty, I'm not sure mankind will ever truly be able to answer. It would be interesting if we could get to where we can answer it, but technically, I'm not sure we ever will. But at the same time, I always argue the fact that does it matter? Because if I sit down and do a ritual and I get the results I'm looking for, regardless, whether the entity's real or it's my subconscious, if I'm actually manifesting what I want, would it matter? And most of my career, I would actually have to say I've said, no, it doesn't matter. Let's see what we got here. We got some stuff popping up. Let's see, Henry, could spirits be tapping into our thoughts, forms, and other memories as an easier way to present themselves for us to understand them in connection? Well, Henry, that is a possible and probable thing, but as well. In fact, if entities are real beings, if we want to go onto that side of the factor, then most of these entities that we are aware of have the ability to read thoughts and minds and memories, and therefore having that knowledge and understanding makes it easier for them to relate to us and present us with information in a way that is actually going to best help us. Now, here's the thing: a lot of people say, I don't understand what they're saying. This is difficult, so something's wrong. No, just because it's difficult doesn't mean something's wrong. In fact, if something's difficult, that usually means this is actually the area you need to work in. And it's usually the difficult things that you don't understand is actually the best thing to help you. Just because it's the best thing to help you doesn't make it going to be easy. Too many people's gotten lazy. Too many people expect things to be easy. So, I mean, that is a probability for sure. Well, first off, Rachel, you'd be hard pressed to find a Norse deity that's not a trickster. I know Loki gets all the press, but Thor it loves his practical jokes, as does Freya, as does Odin, as does Bragi, as does Njord, as does Freyr. They all have a nice little fun loving, jovial style about them. Um, we have started giving this concept of trickster spirits this bad and evil concept about them, and everybody's so worried about them. But honestly and truly, if you sit down and you do some basic research on an entity before you reach out and contact it, and you reach out to the entity, um, you can be pretty sure that that's the entity that is reaching out to you. Also, you can put the entity, to the test. You can talk to them, ask them questions about the lore, and you can even work with them and see. Trickster spirits are not as common as people believe. That has become modern. In fact, if you do any basic setting and cleansing of the area that sets your space, a trickster spirit can't enter it. So if you set your space, um, whether you're using the dragon's flame ritual, and I know people give the hammer rat a lot of shit. Man, they give the hammer rat shit. But it will set the space, regardless of whether it's old, modern. People argue about that. Here's the thing, though: it will still set the space. It will set the intent of the space, and as such, nothing can enter that you do not invite into the space. That's the entire point of setting your space. So, even though trickster spirits aren't common, a very, very basic section of setting your space to invite in the Azir or the Vanir or even a specific entity like Odin or Freya prevents that. And that's, again, we're on the reality of entity side. If we're talking subconsciously, I mean, it doesn't really matter anyways, because the only trickster spirit you'd have to worry about is yourself. And at the end of the day, whether entities are real or not, we are our own worst enemy, hands down. That's why so many people tuck tail and run from shadow work, because shadow work is about looking in the mirror and really passing judgment and being uber critical on our faults and our traumas and working to heal them. Let's see. Oni Chan, there is no absolute yes or no with question. I just wanted your opinion. Yeah, and see, it's one of those things where philosophically, Oni Chan, it's really hard for me to answer it because um, I'd be lying if I said I know where I fully stand on it because I do often sit and meditate on these questions myself. I'm a big believer that you should always question your own stances because that gives you a perspective outside of your own in order to grow. And I do that quite often. I always ask myself in many, many occasions, what if I'm wrong? Or What if there's another perspective that can help me improve upon it? And I think too few people actually do this. Um, so, I mean, there's just so many things that I've noticed the metaphysical and spiritual community they've dug their heels in and refused to grow, change, or consider. And that's not good. That's not good. I mean, because we've seen things that succeed, we see things that create manifestations. And from a metaphysical perspective, those should be considered. Scripts. Yeah, the topic today is actually on reality or subconscious and whether entities are real or part of us, if that helps you out. And any newcomers, pop in by all means if we can fill them in on the topic as it comes up. So let's see. Well, as someone with ADHD, thoughts run through my head 24/7, uh, and impossible connections, but sometimes I just a small eureka moment, but it makes sense with my thought path. How do I know if that's the dragons? Ironically, Wildfire, I have ADHD too, and for those of you who've seen Halloween here on the stream, you can probably guess she has it as well. Um, and it really comes down to knowing you. It comes down to knowing you because once you know you, even with ADHD, you know your thoughts, you know how random they are, you know how much you bump around, change gears, switch tracks, do cartwheels across the room of thought. I mean, at any given point, there's probably anywhere from 6 to 12 thought trains going through my head at full steam ahead, playing chicken with each other. So it's, believe me, being inside my head's an interesting place. And it really comes down to how well do you know yourself? Because if you truly know yourself, then you know your thoughts from anything else. So when that random non you thought pops in there, it's pretty obvious. It's kind of like if I'm sitting here drinking water all day, I know what water is. The second anyone, I don't have to look at it. You can have me blindfolded. You hand me a Coca Cola. If I take a sip, I know that ain't water. And it really becomes that obvious once you truly have an understanding of yourself. Remember, metaphysics and self mastery is about knowing yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically. So you have to understand your own mind. That's one of the reasons last year I told people to unplug themselves from technology and spend time alone. And when I meant alone, I meant spend time alone. Nothing, nada, no sound, no people, just you and your own thoughts for an hour a day. Most people are absolutely petrified to be alone with their own thoughts for 10 minutes. And I've actually considered utilizing YouTube Shorts to do some kind of little weekly or daily challenge kind of thing. But Wildfire, I would actually challenge you to completely and absolutely unplug from everything for 24 hours. Find a way where you can be alone with just you and your thoughts for as much time as humanly possible, and just spend time with you in your own head. Believe me, it gets scary, it gets weird, and this is when all the fears and doubts of everything starts creeping up, and you got to face it because you don't have anything to distract you. When I was growing up, there were times we used to just stand on the sidewalk and wait on people because we didn't have phones, we had no way to call them. If they were late, we just stood there. We just had to wait. This day and age, I can't remember the last time most people don't have something distracting them. They've got a phone in their hand, they got a TV on, they got headphones in. They've always got something distracting them and plugged into something. They're never truly left alone in silence to their thoughts. And that is destroying our mental health, if you want my opinion. And it's definitely destroying our discipline and self mastery. Stuart, what do I know about the Valkyries in Norse legend? Can a mage contact them in life? You can work with Valkyries. You want to go through Freya to do it, though. Um, but you also Valkyries are a little trickier to work with. Don't expect you're going to call up a Valkyrie and give it orders the way you would a spirit or something through evocation. A Valkyrie will help you um, overcome certain things, but they're going to expect you to do it. Anytime you're dealing within the Norse, these are beings that believe wholeheartedly in empowerment. They believe in you doing shit for yourself. In fact, the quickest way to get in trouble within the Norse pantheon is to start giving orders or asking them to do things for you and bail you out of trouble. Because if you ain't willing to stand up and do it for yourself, they ain't going to give you the time of day. They really are not. One of the key ideologies within that Norse current is self sufficiency. And I've seen a lot of people get in trouble because they do not understand self sufficiency. And they go to these entities asking them to give me this, get me out of this problem. But at no point do they ever work on building themselves up so they can deal with their own problems and their own stuff. They don't work toward their own independence, freedom, and self sufficiency. Um, and that really, I can't think of a single Azure or Vanir that will fly with. In fact, Loki's favorite thing, he gets down right, that he will get nastier and actually get his tricks get a lot worse on someone who's less self sufficient, because the less self sufficient you are, the weaker you are, the more pathetic you are, and the more deserving to be picked on you are in his viewpoint. ADHD is very workable. You just have to actually, the first trick is to look in the mirror and be like, I got ADHD. But then the second thing is, don't use it as an excuse. I have met so many people in my life who use it as an excuse. Oh, I can't do this. I have ADHD. Oh, it's not my fault. I have ADHD. Newsflash, people, my grades in school sucked because I have ADHD. Guess whose fault that was? This guy. The second, instead of making excuses or something, when I sat down, it's like, I got ADHD. How do I handle this? And I looked into study habits and everything to allow me to study and work and research as an individual with ADHD. And I owned it. I was holding myself accountable. It flipped around. And that was the beauty of it. See, the second you look in the mirror and you hold yourself accountable instead of making those excuses, and you accept that reality, and you hold yourself responsible for the progress there forward, everything changes. And all my journals, all my study habits to this day are built around the fact I have ADHD. And I have tweaked it over the years bit by bit, but I'm really good at retaining information now. I would not be where I am if I used it as an excuse. My thoughts are entertaining, but God, unplugging sounds terrifying in a boring way. I might try it though. Honestly, if you are serious about magic, you need to be able to be alone with yourself in complete silence. That's just kind of the thing. I actually, some of my long term students will know this. I have actually put a student through a situation where we actually isolated them in silence for anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. Absolute silence. And I got at least one student that They went to the extreme though, and they asked my help for it. But they went to full sensory deprivation for over a week. No, yeah, it comes down to practice and discipline because you do have to work on your focus. So for people with ADHD like myself, discipline and focus are key. So even as you relax, you still have to discipline your focus. Valkyries, one of their jobs is indeed to collect the honorable dead from the battlefield. And well, honorable dead in general to the afterlife. But they do go beyond that. That is one of their base jobs, though. Stuart, cheers. Looking forward to the Norse Magic videos. Thank you, Stuart. We'll see how quick we get going on those. Going to be having a sit down with Odin and find out exactly where and what he has in mind for next year. I won't. I won't lie. I'm excited about it. I know it's a slight change of what I was planning. Many of you know that, um, which is going to really change up my plans for next year. But that's okay. Change is good, and I really enjoyed the last deep Norse pathworking I did was a full year. I don't know if he's wanting to do a full year this time. I don't know if it's going to be limiting what I can use like it was last time. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one's going to pan out. But I am actually really looking forward to diving back into that Norse current. I'll be honest, outside Dragon Magic, Norse Magic is hands down one of my favorites, which has been a very interesting one. I see meditation is a pain because I struggle with random thoughts, like trying to round up cats and yep. And that's one of the reasons I talk about active meditation in a way of when you're focusing on something and a thought comes in, don't just ignore it, examine it, ask yourself, does this thought deal with what I'm actually meditating on? Yes or no. If the answer is no, push it away, get rid of it, and get back to work. Random thoughts, by and large, are part of meditation. That's exactly what's going to happen. You are quieting yourself so those thoughts can come through. Um, and that's perfectly normal. There's a lot of people who don't seem to get that concept. So you should actually be examining those and then finding out if they're a part of what it is you're trying to seek wisdom on or understanding on. And if not, push it to the side, get back to work. That's where that self mastery and focus comes in. See, Adam, someone told me astral travel is not a defensive skill and should not be attempted. Attract any form of spirituality or magic is going to attract entities to you like a moth to a flame. The simple reality is we live in a multiverse, and at any given point, at any time in your life, if you were to open your arcane sight fully, you would see entities, spirits of all kinds surrounding you and crowding you as if you were standing in Times Square on New Year's Eve, shoulder to shoulder, packed in tighter than a sardine can. That's a scare tactic that a lot of people talk about and try and spook people about all these nasties out there that are out to get them. That's all it is. It's a scare tactic. If you want to practice astral travel, practice astral travel. There's a risk to anything you do in life, including stepping out your front door or even getting out of bed. I have heard stories where people get out of bed, stand up, they trip, they fall, they break their neck, they're dead. Guess you shouldn't have got out of bed. That's your fault. Life is not safe. Nothing is safe. Existence is not safe. If you want safe, I don't know what to tell you because nothing's safe. Anything can happen at any point. You're not guaranteed a next breath at any point in life. Um, and people who push scare tactics like this, I don't know where they get it. Some of them's religious people who just, yeah. And then some of them's gatekeeping nut jobs within the practice or cult, or people who believe you should only practice magic within their narrow framework. So there's 1,001 reasons. You take that and use that how you will. Let's see. Well, see, actually, that's not entirely off topic, Oni-chan, because when you are talking about reality or subconscious, Valhalla is an interesting topic. Because by and large, Valhalla is reserved for warriors who died in battle and were chosen by Odin. Now, here's the kicker. Most people don't realize that Odin gets the second half of the Valiant Dead. The second half. Freya actually gets the first half of the Valiant Dead. So, getting to Valhalla is not as straightforward as a lot of people would think it is. And by and large, it was also those who died in battle. So if you live a perfectly great, honorable, noble heathen life, and we go by the definition of die in battle, but you fought in many, many wars, but you die peacefully in your bed, you don't die in battle. So by that definition, Valhalla is off your marker. So it depends on how the individual interprets Valhalla. Now, this is actually a topic I have presented with Odin in many, many ways. And Odin, at least from my perspectives, again, assuming the entity is a full blown real entity and not just a mental construct of humanity, um, or humanity's shared subconscious, made it clear that there are battles of many kinds in which people do fight, and many times those battles are fought in ways that are not necessarily sword, shield, or the like. Um, but if you face those battles head on with courage and honor and discipline, then you may find your way into Valhalla. Um, and this is one of those things where, outside of just the discussions I've had with Odin in general, I've sat down with many Asatru people, many heathens, and we've discussed it. And some people have a hard, if you don't die in battle, you don't go to Valhalla, period. Other people do get a bit more philosophical on it and wonder. And honestly, it's one of those things that, much like the great beyond, the very fact that we can sit here and get philosophical on whether entities are 100% real or whether this is conscious, ultimately that means the very multiverse, the planes, our understanding of it, and the afterlife falls into the same category, which means until we take that next step into the great by and by, we will never truly know the truth of the next journey. Now, to some people, that's a terrifying thought. To me, it's a comforting and exciting thought because the unknown, I love it. It's an adventure. Limiting what you can use. Before you could use this stick. Now, no stick. Only half brain cell use it. Oh, no, Luna. Okay. So when I said when they limited what I could use, so I dove into a full year path working with the Norse. And I dove in so deeply that for my entire magical repertoire for one whole year, all I could utilize was Norse magic. Even no matter how bad crap got, I could not fall back onto other reliable sources that I had prior. It was you solve your problems with this or you don't solve them. Which was, that's where you really start flexing your brain and your muscles and your creativity and what you're actually practicing. So I'm actually grateful for the limitation they placed upon me at that time, which was an amazing year to say the least. In fact, I would recommend a lot of people do that. It was a concept I hadn't really encountered to that extent before, but my understanding and usage of Norse magic accelerated in that year, beyond previous years of research that, I dug into Norse magic probably 10 years before that easily. And the whole 10 years of research and mild application cannot add up to what that 1 year did. It was just freaking amazing. So, oh, and we got 21 people in here and 14 likes. People, give us a thumbs up. Let YouTube know you like the work we're doing. That way they will show the video to people who are looking for this kind of content. And by all means, if you are in some form of social media, where you can share the content and get help people find us, go right ahead. You can share the live streams if you want, or usually the shorter videos I think share better, because the live streams, who wants to come on here and listen to a Southerner ramble if you don't know who I am? Apparently, actually, quite a few people like enjoying to hear me ramble, but that's another topic. Let's see. Josh K. Everything comes from one source, but what is that source made of? Is it energy? And if it is it light energy? And do we turn into light bodies when we die and travel through the astral? Again, when it comes to reality or subconscious, Josh, we don't know. We really just don't know. Because we have to understand, metaphysically, when we use the word energy, has nothing to do with the way science uses energy. In fact, outside the physical realm, energy does not exist by the science definition. And this is one of those little things. So when we're talking about energy and source, we have no actual evidence of a spiritual source at all, outside of philosophies and spirituality and religion. There's no proof of it at all, period. Which easily means that what spiritualist or metaphysically we could be referring to as source could again be that shared consciousness concept, which is based solely and only in the physical realm. So yeah, I mean, that's it's one of those little ponderies that has always been interesting. And I know there's a lot of people that they're going to try and, push out a bunch of different theorems and ideals on how we could prove it, but so far nothing's really held water at all. And I mean, in my research, and like I told you, I actually started in the subconscious side of everything and moved over to, at least from experiential perspective of my practice, I did come over more to the fact that I believe the entities are separate from me. But that is also, you'll notice I still say experience and perspective, because that's all it is. There's no proof beyond my personal experience and perspective that they're separated from me. And that's one reason you don't hear me talk a lot about source, because at the end of the day, the source doesn't matter, no matter how you slice it, reality or subconsciously. That's one of the reasons that the practical side of magic and manifestation, something you can track, is far, far more important. Because if you can track it, if you can build that foundation, then that's going to give you the knowledge, the understanding, and the confidence to move deeper into your own individual spirituality or understanding, whatever that may end up being. Because at the end of the day, if there's something beyond us, that individual understanding will help us. If there's nothing beyond us, that individual understanding ain't going to hurt you, but it'll give you comfort as you go into the great by and by. Scrimps Ahoy, I worry about if an entity wants to work with me or if it's just me misinterpreting what I believe of the signals. How would I work with a deity who don't have many accurate resources? Reach out to them, meditate on them, call out to them by name. Seriously, you don't have to wait for a deity to knock on your door. You can go walk up and knock on their door first. For these people who's like, you have to wait for a deity. No, you don't. No, you don't. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 deities that I can think of right off the top of my head that's ever shown interest in me first. 98% of the entities I work with, I went to them first. So, I mean, even if you work on the subconscious side or the reality side, go talk to them. I mean, it's just like if I was out in town and there's an interesting guy over here. I've heard of Bob. Bob's a great guy. Bob's a good fisherman. He's a great bowler. I can't bowl for squat. I'd like to get to know Bob, maybe get some bowling tips. I'm going to walk up and say hi to Bob and strike up a conversation. Try to build a friendship. Maybe invite him bowling. You never know. But it's the same concept with deities. They're not honestly on these unapproachable pedestals that humankind places them upon. So if you actually are genuinely interested in working with one, just walk up and say hi. See if you two get along. I mean, that's what I do. Let's see. Oh, Gorman, happy autumn. What are coming up? Hey, yeah, happy autumn. We're still a little warm around here. A little warm still. That's okay, though. Autumn's creeping in. Slowly but surely. If a Viking went overboard on a longship over on some stormy sea adventure, could he be selected for Valhalla? Again, Stuart, this is one of those where it becomes a philosophical debate. Because if you're talking about dying in battle, dying aboard a ship is not dying in battle. So the answer would generally be no. In fact, the Norse actually had a couple deities that would help claim people who died at sea. And none of those deities are actually associated with Valhalla at all. So, based upon the mythology and the fact that they actually had deities assigned to this role, then the general precept or ideal would be nope, 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 nope. Those deities would actually have a first claim at them. In fact, the Valkyries don't even claim all the honorable dead. That's actually partially a misnomer as well. In fact, the only deity within Norse mythology that actually has power over all the dead is Hel. She can actually stop and prevent anyone from going anywhere. So, regardless of who you are when you die, Hel has a claim on you in Norse mythology. Now, that's not to say that there's not pre existing conditions where, yes, it's agreed upon that if this person dies under this condition, it goes here or here or here. But at the end of the day, Hel can even override Odin and the rest of them, as she is seen to do in the stories. Because when Balder dies, they go straight to her, and you find a very, very generous, kind caretaker of the dead. And they don't order her to return because they can't. At this point, Balder is dead. He is in Helheim. He belongs to Hel. And she gives a condition. The condition is not met, and Balder is not returned in the story. And the simple fact is, within Norse mythology, you have so many different versions of the afterlife. Valhalla is just one. And in all honesty, Valhalla is not even the best one if you really get down to it, because all Valhalla is basically feasting and fighting until the end of days. I have spent a lot of time in battles. I've seen a lot of violence in my life. I can be honest with you. As much as I enjoy good competitions and stuff, I don't really want to spend my afterlife in violence. I really don't want to go to Valhalla. The way we as modern individuals have propped Valhalla up, and we've propped it like the golden promised land of heaven or the Elysian fields. Valhalla is just kind of propped up there. It really isn't that. Actually, Helheim would be closer to heaven or the Elysian fields or any of the paradise-like areas. Onichan, I would personally agree with you that cancer is a form of battle. And by and large, from my personal chats with Odin, I think that that might be a viable one. But I also don't think that every person who dies of cancer, again, would want to be in Valhalla. They may very well want to be in one of the other places. Again, remember, Valhalla is not exactly the Ritz. Let's see. Joshua Key, have I read the Grand Arcanum? I've read one of them. There's like three versions of a book called the Grand Arcanum. I have read one of them. See, Jamie. Hey, hope your Friday's going well. Yes, it is. Been a busy day, but it's going well. Mugs up to you, Jamie. Hey, better late than never. Yeah, good to see you. Astral parasites are, by and large, created by thoughts or emotions that just permeate and take hold. So, a good example for that, Adam, is have you ever walked into a room after an argument? You just walk in and the room feels weird. You know something went down. That kind of energy that permeates an area or is left unchecked or is common to an area can actually generate an astral parasite on the astral side. Isn't Helheim an icy wasteland? No, it is not. See, a lot of people have this vision of Helheim as an icy wasteland, this desolate, horrible, gray place, much like Disney presents the underworld in the movie Hercules. No, if you actually read the Eddas, Helheim is described as having hills and mountains and grassy fields, blue sky, warm sun. It is a gorgeous place. And for anyone who actually gets a chance to visit it through astral or soul travel, oh my God, it is beyond beautiful. It's gorgeous. The desolate, icy wasteland underworld hellscape is actually painted by the Christian mythos. That's why I tell people read the Poetic Eddas, not the Prose Eddas written by Snorri Sturluson. Read the Poetic Eddas and the Havamal and the Volspa. I had Loki reach out to me today. I've never worked with the Norse pantheon. That's not surprising. Loki is reaching out to a lot of people. And Loki's a lot of fun. My wife works with Loki a lot. I do work with Loki. I mean, it's kind of hard to work with Odin and not work with Loki because they're like, well, they literally are blood brothers. If you read the Eddas, you'll know that. Not genetic brothers, blood brothers, as in an oath of blood brothership. And of course, Thor, one of his best friends as well. So that trio, you really can't work with one of that trio without working with the other two in some shape, form, or fashion, which is a lot of fun. They have so many traits in common, and yet they're so different. I absolutely love working with the trio. I will admit Thor's the one I've worked with the least, but he's actually one of the ones I'm hoping to work with more because of it. But I do adore Thor. Most of the afterlives have some form of feasting. However, to the second part of your question, that one's not really brought up too much. I don't know, Oni-chan. Anyone who's actually seen true violence and not competition fighting like in martial arts, they've truly seen true violence. They know what field surgery is like. Um, mm-mm. Yeah, Oni-chan. They literally fight to the death every day. Every day in Valhalla, you fight to the death. It's not like competition sparring at all. That is not what it is. It's hard to answer this one because I think all myths and legends throughout history have been tweaked. I mean, we're actually hard pressed to find any form of myth that hasn't been tweaked. Largely because most of those myths were passed down orally for a very long time before anything was recorded. Um, but then we have translation difficulties because when you go from one language to another, translations cannot be exact just because the language, the structure is often different. Um, Oftentimes, this has no malicious to it. It's just they're doing the best they can. And then you do have cases in history where it looks like something was changed with a agenda at hand. Um, and I understand this because I truly, truly, truly believe Snorri Sturluson truly loved Norse mythology, and he truly wanted to preserve it as much as he could. But in order to achieve his goal, he also had to write it in a manner that was acceptable for the time, considering um, a lot of the Christian conversion and everything happening. So he did everything he could to preserve it as best he could within the limitations he had. And I do believe he truly, truly did actually care about the mythology. Um, but we do have to remember when we read any mythology, not just Snorri Sturluson, we have to read it with an understanding and a critical eye um, of why was it written and why would it have been altered and the different viewpoints over the times. Because by and large, as far as Norse spirituality, there's not a lot recorded on it. There's not a lot written down. Um, but so you do kind of have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt there. Um, it gets tricky. Again, Adam, we're dealing with reality or subconscious, so it's one of those things where, by and large, there's no way to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that any of the spiritual realms exist at all. And um, it's one of those firsthand experiences. Every practitioner is going to have to reach this conclusion for themselves. And that's one of the reasons the topic of reality or subconscious fascinates so many mages. Because if you can indeed manage to manifest and improve your life and your self mastery, um, it really doesn't matter one way or the other if they exist or not. Um, and this is actually almost entirely the entire basis of chaos magic. If you go and read like Condensed Chaos or some other of the books on chaos magic, you find out that um, by and large, they just make it up as they go, but they do follow a process. It has to yield results for it to count. Chaos magic, you don't just get to do whatever you want because you want to do it. It has to yield results. Um, and that is kind of the big kicker. And that's something that, at least in modern times, we've lost. We have lost when it comes to magic. They have lost the eye on the results, the eye on progress. They've just started making it up. I'll believe whatever I want. It's my truth. It doesn't need to yield results as long as I'm happy. Well, your happiness is good, but if your happiness isn't improving you, if it's, I've seen people who complain about people trying to help them in their practice, but they won't make a change. They will do nothing to change, and then they complain that their life won't change. Newsflash, if you're not willing to make changes, your life won't change. Period. End of story. Um, and this is one of the reasons I think the reality and subconscious philosophy is amazing. Because at the end of the day, regardless of which one's truth, there is one thing I do think remains true in both. And that is, at the end of the day, the true power to shape the magician's life will always reside in the magician. And to me, that is hands down the most comforting thought ever. Because at no point, as long as the power is mine, I'm fine. I got it. I'm limited only by my will, what I'm willing to get up and work for. And truth be told, if something's not important enough for you to get up and work for it, you don't deserve it. And so for me, it's a comforting thought. But I will also close with this because I see Jade and Luna throwing clocks at me. So I will close with this. There are a lot of people out there who do a lot of magics very differently. Some work with egregores, some work with known fictional characters, some work with classical mythology, some work with Norse mythology. There's magicians and practitioners across the board. I've seen a lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram with Buffy Summers at one of the corners and Bugs Bunny at another corner. It worked. Here's the kicker. Don't go giving other magicians shit just because they don't do it the way you do it. No matter how crazy their practice may look. I don't care if they're singing Rick'em Rack'em Firecrackers Zip Boom Ba for their ritual incantation. If they're yielding results and they're manifesting a happy, successful life in what they are looking for, you got no rights to give them any crap. However, the other side of this coin is if we as magicians are constantly slamming our head against the wall trying to yield a result and we're not getting the result, don't be so arrogant and egotistical that if someone offers you help, that you shut yourself off from all outside perspectives and continue on the same dead end path. Step back, look at your journals, examine what you're doing, and ask yourself, what can I change? That is so very important. So very important. And I think that it might be the greatest fault to most practitioners. They don't want to step back and say, I made a mistake. I was wrong. What can I do? They don't want help. And I'll be honest, when those practitioners rear their head, because it's actually funny because they'll ask a question, and when you critique it, they just shoot it down. I'll be honest, next time they come up, I don't even listen to them. It's like, look, you came here, I gave you advice, you told me I was a dumbass and walked out. I'm not wasting my time. Stop asking for advice you're not going to listen to. So yeah, those are big and important things that I would recommend for all practitioners. And always take a time to step back and look at your own personal philosophies and ask if you could tweak them. How can you better yourself in those? Kind of like last week when I was talking about, try to be a better person tomorrow than you were today, in some small way, because little ways add up. I think you'll be surprised where you'll get if you just stay on that self-critical lens. All right, everyone, before I get more clocks thrown at me, I am going to go and jump out of here, and I will see you Sunday for Magical Coffee Hour. Tomorrow is my day off. I'm going to try and enjoy my weekend. Y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe and enjoy your weekend. For those of you who work the weekend, sorry. Hopefully, when your days off come around, you enjoy those days off. Because I know standard work weeks don't exist for most people, myself included. So do your best to enjoy your days off when you get them, and then I'll see y'all Sunday. All right? Have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.